Hey guys. Alright, I am going to be reacting to Mr. Nightmare videos, and I'm probably gonna do two. I don't know, am I? I'll see how I feel after the first one. So I need to figure out how to screen record on my Mac. Here we go. I'm gonna do the Motel one. Okay.
This happened to me about 2 years ago when I was driving home from New York down to Tennessee to visit one of my friends from college. I left early in the morning, thinking I could probably make the whole drive in one shot, but by the time it got late, I realized I was way too exhausted to safely keep driving. It was around 1 in the morning at that point, and I was somewhere in Virginia off a highway I don't remember anymore. I pulled off at one of those blue sign exits that only has a gas station, a food place, and a couple old motels. I chose the cheapest motel because I honestly just needed somewhere to sleep for a few hours.
Bedbugs.
The place looked pretty rough from the outside.
You don't know.
It was one of those two-floor motels where every room faces the parking lot. You know, the motel from every scary movie ever.
Yep.
Half the lights outside were out, and there were barely any cars there.
Never in a million years.
Slow night, I guess.
Never in a million years, especially as a woman, would I stay in a motel like this.
I almost left and found another place, but I was so tired, and honestly, I was looking for a bed, not some glamorous resort. The front office was behind thick glass, even though it was open. The guy working there looked like he was in his 50s. He barely even looked up when I walked in. I paid for the room, got my key card, and asked if they had many vacancies. He said most of the rooms upstairs were empty. I remember that because it made me feel a little better knowing there wouldn't be people making noise all night. Oh boy, the irony of that. My room was on the second floor near the far end of the building. The room was old-fashioned, but for the money, that was expected. There was a weird smell to be expected in an old hotel or motel. The room was humid as hell, but the AC made such a horrible rattling noise that I just left it off.
No,
I
see,
honestly considered just
as someone who sleeps with a fan, I need noise.
sleeping in my car instead, but I was already there and too tired to care anymore. I locked the door, shut the blinds. I took a shower and laid down on the bed with the TV on low volume. I was in bed for around 20 minutes before I started hearing arguing next door. Sounded like a couple fighting. Oh, great. The walls were thin enough that I could hear muffled voices, but not clearly enough to make out full sentences. One voice sounded deeper and angry, while the other sounded softer. The weird thing was the softer voice didn't sound female exactly. It sounded like someone mimicking a woman's voice, an obvious higher-pitched voice coming from a man. The argument kept going back and forth for a while. One voice would get loud and aggressive, and then the other would respond sounding serious, and then the other would respond sounding nervous. I started noticing something strange, though. The timing between the voices felt suspiciously perfect. There was never any overlap, like in basically any real fight. I turned my TV volume down and sat there listening closer. That's when it hit me, that it was one guy doing both voices. Once I realized, I couldn't unhear it. The deeper voice sounded natural, but the softer voice sounded like the same man trying to imitate somebody else, I guess a female. I remember feeling this weird pit in my stomach because it suddenly changed the entire situation from an annoying argument to something seriously disturbing. The so-called argument kept going for another few minutes before suddenly stopping completely for there to just be silence. I remember laying there staring at the ceiling, hoping maybe the guy had finally gotten tired of whatever the hell he was doing. Then I heard a few slow knocks on the wall beside my bed. A fist hitting the wall like you'd knock on a door. My head shot to the left. Then I heard this muffled voice through the wall saying, "I hear you in there."
No, 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 no. The fact that he's silent, just staring at the ceiling, hoping the guy went to bed, and then he's like, "I hear you in there." See, don't stay at motels. No motels. Unless they have a 5-star rating. No.
I held my breath. Then the guy knocked again and said the same thing again, like he was waiting for acknowledgement.
I'm scared.
He was trying to do some creepy, playful voice, like he found something funny. I wasn't having any of this. I grabbed the remote and turned the TV volume up, trying to drown him out. For maybe 30 seconds, there was no sound at all. Then I heard the vibration of a door opening outside.
Oh my
Hearing
God.
that instantly made my heart start racing because I knew he had left his room. I muted the TV and listened carefully.
He didn't go into
I
your
could
door,
feel the
dude.
vibration of footsteps on the balcony outside approach my room. My blinds were fully shut, except for a tiny crack near the edge where they didn't fully meet the wall. I kept staring at that crack, wondering if I should look or not. Part of me thought I was just making the situation scarier in my head than it actually was.
Ignore it.
Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I walked slowly to the window and pulled the blinds apart just enough to see outside. The second I looked through, I saw a man standing right outside my window trying to look in. His face was so close to the glass that it made me jump backward immediately. We definitely made eye contact for a split second. His eyes looked wide open. The second I moved away from the window, he started making
his eyes were like that. Oh my God. He either has a mental illness and I feel bad, or he's on drugs. Or both. No way. No way.
weird voices outside. I promise this when I say he sounded like he was imitating characters.
Stop.
I don't know what characters, but he was having a whole creepy voice acting practice outside my motel room door. Then he started knocking on my door while changing his voice over and over. 1 second he sounded high-pitched and childish, then suddenly deep and angry. I remember one of the voices sounding like an exaggerated southern accent. It would have sounded ridiculous, maybe even funny in any normal situation, but hearing it outside my motel room at nearly 2 in the morning terrified me. This was obviously a sick, mentally ill person. The knocking kept getting harder. Not enough to break the door down, but enough that I thought the whole motel could hear it. I called the front office immediately and told the guy that somebody outside my
Not gonna fucking do anything.
room was acting insane and wouldn't leave me alone. The guy sounded irritated at first until he probably heard the banging through the phone. Then his tone changed and he said he'd come up right away.
Okay.
The guy outside kept switching voices and knocking for another minute or two. Then suddenly it stopped completely. I looked through the peephole and saw him speed walking back into the room beside mine. A few seconds later, the motel worker came upstairs carrying a flashlight and his other hand on his holster.
Oh.
He knocked on the door next to mine after seeing the guy speed off into that room, and he started trying to talk to the guy inside. There was no answer at all from inside. The worker stood there for maybe a minute before finally coming over to me. I opened the door and explained everything that happened. The worker hesitated for a second before saying the guy had been staying there for a while. That answer alone made me want to leave immediately. I asked if I could switch rooms, and he said yes. He moved me to a room downstairs near the front office, right by my car. I grabbed my few belongings as fast as possible and followed him down there. The new room was basically identical to the first one, except not next to a mentally ill person.
And again, I feel bad. They can't help it, but also fucking terrifying.
I remember feeling relieved once I locked myself inside because I figured there was no way the guy would bother me again after management got involved. I turned the TV on quietly and sat awake for a while, replaying the whole thing in my
I don't
head.
know if I could sleep.
Eventually, exhaustion caught up to me, and I started drifting off. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up again, but it was still dark outside. What woke me up was the sound of someone outside the room. I looked toward the window and saw a shadow move past the crack in the blinds. Then a few seconds later, it passed again. I carefully moved closer to the window without making noise and looked through the crack. It was the same guy from upstairs. He was creepily walking past my room over and over again. The weird part was he wasn't making voices anymore. He wasn't knocking either.
What was he doing?
He just kept walking by while looking toward the room every time he passed.
How did he know which fucking room you were moved to?
I remember feeling even more uncomfortable because now he seemed calm. I watched him do this maybe 4 or 5 times before he eventually disappeared toward the back of the motel. I didn't sleep again after that. The second the sun started coming up, I packed all my stuff, threw it in the car, and left without even returning the key card.
See? After that second time, why didn't you just leave? Why'd you wait for the sun to come up? Well, actually, no, I get that, because when the sun's up, everything feels less scary and sketchy, but yeah, I don't know if I'd leave when it was dark either. I'd probably wait too. Never mind. Okay, he's good.
I stopped at a gas
Don't listen
station
to
down
me.
the road for coffee and realized my hands were still shaking. People are weird and downright dangerous. Staying at a creepy motel is perhaps how to do a speed run of meeting those people. I will not stay at one again.
Okay, last story probably.
So if you've never stayed at a motel, they're basically a hotel's smaller, broker little cousin. Compared to a hotel, they're usually
Smaller broker little cousin. That's funny.
completely bare bones. You just get a bed to sleep on, a bathroom, and that's it.
Yep.
But that's the beauty of them sometimes, if you don't want to spend hotel dollars.
I'd rather sleep in my
So my
car.
girlfriend Julie and I were the first example. We were driving down to Florida, which is a 17-hour drive for us. When we were about 11 hours into the drive, it was dark, late, and I was feeling that feeling of struggling to keep my eyes open. We had already pinned a motel on the map half an hour earlier that Julie found. Julie already booked us a reservation for the motel. Seeing 2 minutes left on the screen was a huge relief. I pulled us off the highway and eventually into the parking lot of the motel. I think there was one other car, and honestly, it could have been the front office employees. I went to the little front office and there was a woman sitting in there. She gave me the key and told me the room number, room 5. It was the far corner on the ground level. Julie and I brought our small bags into the room. We took turns in the bathroom brushing our teeth and whatever. When I went through my bag and realized my phone charger was still in the car, I got up and told Julie I'd be right back. She just gave me a little grunt like she was too tired and saying a word would use up too much energy. I opened the door and left it cracked open. I walked over to the car and pressed the button on the key fob to unlock it. The lights lit up, and I think that's when I noticed the lights in the front office were off. The lady went back to sleep, I guess. Maybe that car was hers and she lives on the property. Wouldn't surprise me. But now, the place was completely dark. It was a little eerie. Not even any traffic on the road. As I got to my car, I dug around looking for my charger. I took a minute looking for it till I found it in the center compartment. I closed the door, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw someone right by the door to our room.
No.
It was a man. I left the door cracked open just as a subconscious habit so I wouldn't get locked out, even if they weren't automatic locking doors.
No.
I jogged over to make it clear I was there before this man entered the room or something weird. I have to admit, this man was large. Not just tall, but big frame too. He had on a long trench coat that did not fit the mildly chilly weather. As I got close to the door, it really looked like he was planning on opening the door. When he heard me coming, he turned around. The man from the start smiled and had a very soft demeanor. The way he spoke was so soft that instead of being calming, it was off-putting. He asked me how I was doing tonight. Mind you, it was like past 1 a.m. I could read something weird in his intentions with his small talk, so I deflected it and skipped to the important question, which was, "What are you doing walking around so late? Are you staying here?" He shot back his answer quickly in the same soft voice, saying, "Oh, I'm staying upstairs. Just going for a stroll." I nodded, and then smiled back and said,
Right outside our door?
"Well, enjoy your walk. Have a good night." He smiled and nodded, and then I went inside and shut the door. I was pretty quick to lock it.
Yeah.
Julie was in bed already, snoring. I stood by the door with my ear up to it. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to hear footsteps walking away or not. All I know is, I didn't. Was he still standing there? I was scared to know, but I had to. I got on my knees, literally, and crawled over to the window, and very delicately moved the curtain a bit to the side, just enough at an angle to see in front of the door of the room. He was there. He was actually standing in front of our motel room door as if he was just staring at it. I lay on the floor like that for 10 minutes. He wouldn't move. It was like I was having a staring contest with him, and he was having a staring contest with our door. I eventually said this and crawled over to the bed. When I got into the bed, I shook Julie awake but told her to be quiet. She was groggy until I explained everything about that encounter and that he's still outside the door.
I was waking up real fast.
I didn't want to scare her, but I also didn't want to be alone with the situation.
Yeah,
and I knew she wouldn't believe me if I didn't tell her. I whispered at her to go crawl to the window and look out it. She said I was scaring her and to stop, but I begged her to go look so she'd believe me. She gave in and got on her knees and crawled to the window where I moved the curtain. She looked out to the door and said, "He's not there." I said, "Look harder. Are you sure?" And then she gasped, if not shrieked. She got up and ran back to the bed. I honestly panicked and said, "What is it? What did you see?" She replied to me to go look out the window at the rooms across the parking lot. I crawled back to the window and looked around, and I saw it very quickly. The guy in the trench coat was across the parking lot. He was standing still, but still facing our room. Actually, he was facing the window. I know it, like he saw me watching him. I looked for 30 seconds and he didn't move. I yanked the curtain shut. I told Julie I'm freaking the f*** out. I grabbed a blunt object just to keep by the bed secretly. I didn't want Julie seeing that and realizing I was expecting things to get physical. We waited in the bed for like an hour, and at some point in that time, we thought we heard footsteps walk by outside.
Nope.
We couldn't be sure. All I know is we both agreed we heard something outside by the window. The terrifying thought that he was outside our window the entire time was actually sick. Part of me just sensed it, that he was right outside. It was so late at this point, and we were so shot from the drive that I think we just faded away without realizing it. We woke up the next morning, actually relieved we made it through the night. We put our stuff in the car, and I went to the front desk. The same lady was there. I think she owned the place. I returned the key and told her about the man in the trench coat, and how he was creepily walking around and then standing outside our door for 10 minutes. The woman looked scared and surprised when I told her this. She said she knew of no such man. She also said we were the only guests that night. When I asked,
No. I don't like that at all. No.
she said she had no cameras either.
I don't like...
Julie and I...
Girl, you're a business owner and you own a motel where bad shit can happen. Or like sketchy shit can happen. When you think of motels, you think of sketchy shit, okay? And you don't have any cameras on the property at all. All right.
thanked the woman, and we got the f*** out of there. I almost felt bad for that woman, leaving her there alone. But honestly, Julie and I didn't want to be there another second. It was just an extremely strange night. A once-in-a-lifetime creepy experience that we'll forever tell at gatherings.
Let's do this.
This is a story about the importance of truly knowing people. You may think you have a good read on someone, but in reality, you have no idea what they're thinking or what they're capable of. This happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The struggle of everyday life was starting to wear thin on me and my girlfriend Stacy. She suggested that we rent a cabin out in the woods just to escape for a few days. Naturally, I loved the idea, but I wasn't exactly rolling in the cash. My best friend Randy and his girlfriend were close to us, so she suggested that they come with us to make it like a couple's getaway. It would be fun hanging out, and they would be able to pay for half the trip. I loved the idea, and when I presented it to Randy, he was on board immediately. Less than a week until the trip, Randy and his girlfriend broke up. The breakup was sudden, and it didn't end well. Stacy and I tried to figure out if we should offer Randy his money back or just not say anything. We really didn't have the funds to do this alone, but it's also not fair to make Randy pay for half a trip that he's not even going on. I called Randy to talk about it, and he told me not to worry about it, and we started getting pumped for our trip alone.
That's a nice shot. I love that. Anyway.
The next day, which was only a few days before the trip, Randy told me that he found someone else to go on the trip with us. I told him that I wasn't crazy about that idea.
Yeah.
And when Stacy heard, she agreed. We didn't really want to travel with some random rebound that even Randy barely knew. Promised that his new girlfriend would be cool and that we would love her. Stacy and I were not happy. We knew the trip had the potential to end in awkward disaster. That alone would be a horror story. It took a little while, but we decided that we were going to make the best of the situation.
So pretty.
The weekend finally arrived, and we carpooled to the cabin together in my truck. Randy introduced us to his new girlfriend, Lucy. She seemed sweet and even a little quiet. Stacy and I are not shy, and we can be loud and annoying. We spent most of the drive trying to get to know Lucy, but she wasn't very talkative. I barely knew what her voice sounded like by the time we got to the cabin. The trip started fine. We all got settled in, and we...
If I'm around a new person and they're not talkative, then it's just gonna be awkward. I'm like, I don't know what to talk about.
We were just hanging around the fireplace chatting. Stacy and I love playing card games, but we especially love Uno. So Stacy suggested that we play Uno, and everyone was on board. Even Lucy seemed like she was finally starting to come out of her shell. When Stacy called Uno, indicating that she only had one card left, Lucy looked over at her, and with rage and anger in her normally mousy voice, she started to rip into Stacy. We all kind of laughed at first, thinking she was kidding around, but that made it so much worse. Lucy started to go insane. She was screaming that Stacy must have been cheating, and there's no way she could have only had one card left. I'm not being sarcastic when I say she was screaming about Uno with people she barely knew.
That's
Even if Stacy
crazy.
was cheating, which she wasn't, this was an outrageous overreaction.
Guys, or a girl, it's a game. It's okay. It's really okay.
When Randy tried to calm her down, she threw all her cards and left the living room.
Oh, no.
He apologized to us, and we just laughed it off. Later that night, Stacy made dinner, and Lucy seemed completely fine now, almost like she didn't throw a temper tantrum a few hours ago. This is red flag number 2. While we were eating, Lucy started to overshare details about her and Randy's personal time together, like very private and personal things that I'm not going to mention in the story for Randy's sake. I could tell he was embarrassed. I just kept trying to crack jokes and change the subject. Eventually she stopped, and the 4 of us didn't do much for the rest of the evening. The next morning and day were uneventful. Randy seemed distant, and we barely saw or heard from Lucy. It wasn't until that night that things got weird. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up to Randy standing over me. It scared the hell out of me.
No. If he's sleepwalking, absolutely not.
I asked him what he was doing, and he looked terrified. He asked if he could stay in our room tonight and if we could keep the door locked. I was confused and asked him if he could explain why.
Yeah.
Apparently, he woke up during the night and Lucy was standing at the bottom of the bed, just staring at him. When he asked what she was doing, she just shrugged and said that she was watching him sleep, just in case.
What in the obsession? Did he one-wish willow her? That sounded really weird.
Whatever that means. He said they stared at each other for a moment, and then she just turned and walked out of the room. Several minutes later, she still didn't return to the room. He decided to get up and go check on her and make sure she was okay, and that's when he noticed something on her side of the bed. He moved the blanket a little bit, and right there on the bed was a large knife. That's when he decided to sneak over to our room. He quietly walked
Again, I laugh at horror. It's like a shock thing. That's insane. Oh no.
through the dark cabin, trying not to make a noise.
No.
When he got to the living room, he heard Lucy humming to herself and wandering around like she was almost dancing. He said it kind of looked like she was
Who is this girl? That's why you don't invite brand new people on trips. You're basically asking for creepy shit to happen, especially when you invite a new person to a cabin. No.
sleepwalking, but worse.
No.
When she was
the
almost at
humming.
our bedroom door, the floor creaked subtly and she stopped humming. She turned to his general direction, and in an ominous voice, she said, "I see you." Randy said that it didn't even look like she was looking at him, just in his direction. After that, she turned around and continued to hum and skip around the dark cabin. That's when he entered our room and locked the door. I was trying to process all of this, and at the same time, Stacy woke up. We were in the middle of nowhere, so we didn't really know what to do. While we were contemplating, we could still hear Lucy pacing around the cabin. A few minutes later, we heard the front door to the cabin slam shut. We opened the bedroom door, and Lucy wasn't there. Randy looked out of the window and saw Lucy heading into the freezing cold forest with a t-shirt and a pair of shorts on.
Lucy has to have severe sleepwalking issue. Or she's just a psychopath.
Randy ran to his bedroom and screamed because the knife was gone. Stacy said we had to go out and get her and couldn't just let her wander in the woods in the middle of the night, especially if she was sleepwalking. Randy was terrified and wanted nothing to do with his new girlfriend. Stacy went back to our room and started putting on warm clothes and a jacket.
But I also understand.
Randy was pleading with her to just call a park ranger or something. I've known Randy my entire life, and I've never seen him this scared. During our brief discussion in the bedroom, we heard the cabin door open and close again. We all got quiet and listened intently. We heard Lucy stomping down the hall toward her and Randy's bedroom, but she was still humming.
Stop with the humming.
We stayed in our bedroom that night and didn't sleep at all. At 6 in the morning, we heard Lucy in the kitchen washing dishes. We all went out there, and she greeted us like nothing was wrong. Stacy and I chalked this all up to Lucy just being a bit off, and Randy going through some of his own issues.
Bit off? Girl had a knife. Girl was watching him sleep. Girl was humming and skipping around the cabin. Girl went out in the snow in a t-shirt and shorts. She's not just a little bit off.
Since he had just broken up with his long-term girlfriend before this trip. Everything we experienced the night before was weird for sure, but it could be explained by sleepwalking or something like that. Randy was convinced that something darker was at play here, but Stacy dismissed it right away. He texted me and told me to go to his bedroom right now and not to tell anyone. I went over there, and he showed me something horrifying. While he was packing up his stuff, he moved Lucy's bag. When he set her bag down, a large knife fell out of the side, the same knife that Randy saw the night before.
So
I could see and feel how scared Randy was.
So she brought a giant knife with her. Why?
He put the knife back in her bag and waited in the living room for everyone else to be ready to leave. The drive home was full of tension. Just knowing that Lucy had that knife in her bag freaked me out.
I don't know if I would, confront her. I'd just be like, so, how'd you sleep last night? Do you have sleepwalking issues? If she was like, no, why? I'd be like, you might want to get checked out. You might want to go to a sleep clinic or a psych ward.
Thankfully, we made it home safe and physically unharmed. Randy ghosted Lucy after that, and she must not have cared because she never tried to get a hold of him either. Occasionally, Stacy will still try to find Lucy on social media, but she's never had any luck. She's even looked at inmate lockup records and still no Lucy.
Wow.
It's like there's no record of Lucy existing, making us feel like she was clearly using a fake name.
How did he meet this girl? How did he meet this girl? I need to know how he met this girl.
But if that's the case, what did she want? I wonder if she intended to hurt Randy. Truly, I have no idea what to think about that weekend. The fact that she had the knife and there's no record of this woman just makes me think whoever she was, she had dark intentions.
Yeah.
I guess it's good that, for whatever reason, she didn't act on them.
And she wasn't a stalker also.
The last few years, I've really separated myself from the rest of the world. I've always been someone who likes to be alone, and I don't love the company of others except for some very few people in my life.
Okay.
A few years ago, I was at the height of my introverted personality. I would go out of my way to find peace and quiet. I would often find cabins and other secluded places to stay on the weekends whenever I had the funds to make it happen. That may seem ridiculous to some people, but my anxiety for just normal interactions with people was so bad at this point that I would go to those extreme lengths just to be alone.
I can understand
This
that.
extreme habit continued for about 2 years.
Okay.
During that time,
Sorry,
something happened at one of my weekend cabin getaways that really freaked me out. The weekend started like any other one. I found a secluded cabin about 2 hours from home and made the trek out there. I usually would use that weekend time to hike, spend time outdoors, and mostly just catch up on reading. I arrived Friday evening at the cabin, made a small dinner, read a few chapters of my book, and went to bed early. The next morning, I decided to take a long hike. I've always just found peace being outside in nature.
I couldn't stay in a cabin alone. Couldn't do it. I wish I could do things alone. Like, I can do things alone. I just mean, like, go on a hike alone, go on a trip alone. I'll do it eventually, but, like, I'm scared of scary things. I've heard too many horror stories.
Whether it's sunny, rainy, or even snowing, I just love being outside. While I was hiking through the woods, I could hear something behind me. The sound of twigs and branches snapping. You could assume that it was just the sounds of nature, but it sounded almost too deliberate to be natural. I tend to be irrational, so my mind went right away to somebody following me. But every time I turned around and scanned the surroundings, I was completely alone. I kept hiking for a little while longer, but that feeling of paranoia just kept growing. I decided to cut the hike short and head back to the house. I had gotten to a point where I wasn't even enjoying being outside anymore. That night was particularly rough on me. Maybe it was because of all the anxiety I was feeling on the hike earlier, but I just remember being sad. I decided to have a drink, and that turned into a few drinks. Once I started to feel the drinks hitting my system, I felt better, and all that anxiety from earlier slowly disappeared. Around 11 that night, I thought I heard a knock at the door. I turned the music off and made my way to the door.
No. 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 Nope.
The front door was a heavy wooden door with 2 rectangular windows set into it.
Nope.
I looked outside and saw nothing, so I walked away, and before I could sit back down, I heard another knock at the door. I went back over to look out, and this time, someone was standing there, but it was too dark to make out any details. Before I said anything, I turned on the front light, which mostly illuminated the man standing out there.
Oh, ooh, ooh. Of course it's a man. Of course it's a man. Of course it's a man. It's always a fucking man. Normal women don't do shit like this. Lucy clearly had mental issues, but normal men will do shit like this. Why? Why? Why is it always men?
Standing on the other side of the door. He was about 6 feet tall, had an athletic build, and was clean-shaven with a slicked-back haircut. This man was clearly out of place.
Yeah.
He looked like he was ready for a business meeting, not a nighttime walk in the woods. I couldn't figure out why a man in a suit would randomly show up to a secluded cabin at 11 p.m. From my side of the door, I asked the man if he was okay and what he wanted. There was a weird and almost unnatural pause before the man answered. It was almost like he was processing what I was saying before he answered. Then he finally answered and said that he was driving with his girlfriend earlier. He claimed that he had spent hours walking around looking for her, and now he's lost. He asked if he could please come inside so he could call someone for help.
No.
On its own, this was alarming and unsettling, just because a random stranger appeared at the door in the middle of the woods. But one of the most unsettling parts of this was his lack of any emotion in his voice.
Nope.
This did not sound like a man who was lost and missing his girlfriend. He sounded completely void of emotion. I told him to back away from the door and wait at the end of the driveway, and that I would call someone for help. He paused again and looked around slowly. With that same lack of energy, He said that he really needed to come inside.
Nope.
Something was outside, and if he didn't get inside for help, he was going to be in trouble.
Let's just get this straight right now. You're not coming inside. You're not coming inside. It's not happening.
The tension I felt at this moment is almost indescribable. I told him I was calling the police and that he could. As I walked away from the door to grab my phone, I heard him say that he wanted to hide inside the cabin. He was in trouble and he needed to hide inside.
Nope.
I grabbed my phone, and that's when he started to aggressively pound on the door.
Nope.
I ran back to the door, and I started to scream some vulgar things at the man outside. In the middle of my rant, I stopped yelling because I heard the man laughing. This was by far the most emotion the man had shown. I looked out the window, and the man had his face practically pressed up against it. His face was just inches away from mine. I nearly fell over from the shock of seeing him so close to me. In a calm voice, he said, "Come on, Victor, just open the door already."
He said, "Come on, Victor."
Somehow, this stranger in a suit knew my name. I was frozen for a few seconds, and then without thinking, I dialed 911 and I told them that I was staying at a cabin and a strange man was trying to break in. As soon as I hung up the phone, I looked out the window and nobody was there. For almost 15 minutes, I waited for the police, and I never once stopped looking out the window. During that time, I didn't see any movement outside. It was one single patrol car, and when he got there, I opened the door and let him in quickly. I told the cop everything, and he seemed concerned and confused. He told me that none of the other surrounding residents reported anything weird, and this was the first time he had ever gotten a call like this. The cop was nice and could tell that I was a nervous wreck. He suggested that I drive into town and stay at one of the hotels if I was still.
Back to the motel story. Why wouldn't you stay at a hotel? I know motels are cheaper, but they're cheaper for a reason, because they're sketchy as fuck. Most of them, I feel like, are. Stay at a hotel.
I told him that I had been drinking and that I didn't feel comfortable driving my car, but I didn't want to stay there alone. He was nice enough to offer to drive me into town.
That's nice.
As we were walking to the patrol car, I heard the officer make a weird sound, almost like he was shocked. I asked what was wrong, and he pointed to the tires of my car in the driveway. My tires were deflated, and it looked like they had been slashed. I started to unravel a bit, and the cop did a good job of keeping me as grounded as I could be. He drove me to a nearby hotel and stayed with me in the lobby until I could get in touch with my dad. I stayed in that hotel that night, and my dad came to pick me up in the morning and helped me sort out the details of getting my car towed. The owner of the cabin reached out to me a million times to apologize, but I just didn't care. I wanted this experience to be over. I didn't even ask for a refund. Some people have floated the idea to me that somehow the owner of the cabin was involved in this nightmare, or that the owner himself was the man in the suit, but I don't think so. The man had a picture of himself on his profile, and the man in the suit looked nothing like this guy. I never got any answers, and I'm sure I never will. I still get chills to this day when I think about that night. Even seeing those stupid prism windows freaks me out. I hate knowing that somewhere out there, this man is potentially still terrorizing people.
I think the creepiest story was Lucy. Is that her name? Okay, well, that's gonna be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you enjoyed my reacting, my commentating. Let me know if you want to see another video like this. I've been watching a lot of Barry, who makes videos with Jake and Johnny. He makes a lot of reacting videos. So let me know if you want to see me do another one of these. Let me know what else. Let me know what else you want me to do. Happy Pride Month. Let me know what Pride themed videos you want me to do. So I'm gonna go now. Let me know which story was your favorite. Anyway, love you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.